Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. There is something scrolling across the bottom that I want to talk about briefly before we get into our conversation. The Thriving Minds course is something that we've done 3 of already. The next one is going to be in January. We've had well over 125 people sign up. Again, it's focusing on mental wellness for entrepreneurs. So in the beginning of the new year, we will have the link posted up. But again, it's something that's we're very passionate about. Sarah and Kira of Collectively Tangled, our partners, also have been very passionate about. So we're extremely excited about the next one in January. But this conversation is so long overdue. I know I say that a lot to some of my guests, but this one, I've watched, what Mike has done here in the ecosystem. I'm excited to talk about it. How are you today, Mr. Grantmyre?
Doing all right. It's a fine Wednesday.
It is a fine Wednesday. It's a beautiful Wednesday. We're gonna have a great conversation here, and then I think we're just both off for the holidays.
Love it.
I know I am anyway. I'm not doing.
Little R&R.
Yeah, I'm not doing. I
Agrees
am
with it.
not. I am not doing anything. I am not going to
Yeah,
be. It's just quiet for me. Just nice and
good for
relaxing.
you. So you guys will be sticking around here in Calgary then.
Oh, absolutely. How about yourself?
Yeah, we're gonna be. We've got a 3-month-old at home, so it's our second. So we're gonna stay close to home, and we the role this year is that I've got a bunch of transactions that are actually closing over the holidays. So it'll be a working vacation.
A working vacation.
Yeah,
Well, that's it. I mean, we all kind of work. That's what lawyers and entrepreneurs do, don't we?
that's what we're famous for. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
But hey, I would love to say that you're the first Osler lawyer on the show, but of course, we've had Matt Burgoyne on, big supporter of what we do at the Canadian blockchain, probably the OG lawyer in Canada, and he's an actual, legend and wealth of knowledge and leader in our industry. So that kind of started off my journey to, getting to know the law firm, and then of course, we hear of this, this big shot lawyer coming out here from Toronto, and obviously when we got started to get to know you, you're like, I don't think he is from Toronto. I think somewhere in the past he lived out in the prairies because he's fitting, right in with us, and he
Yeah,
has that kind of prairie mentality,
yeah.
and I again, as we've gotten to become, know each other, become friends, I love of what you have done with Osler. So why don't you kind of start off with saying, why did you want to move out to Alberta, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll say it was a bit of a natural transition. So I think you subconsciously maybe picked up on the fact that I was born in Alberta. I was born just in St. Albert, and we moved to Texas when I was about 4 years old, and so did the roundabout trip from Alberta to Texas to Ontario and now back. But I think the decision to move to Alberta was not something that was, in all fairness, initially on my radar. I think as we, I was fairly locked in Toronto and practice there and what we were doing as a firm. And, as a firm, we started having discussions about, how do we continue to reinforce and support some of the work that Osler's historically done in the prairies. And by that, what I mean is that we have, like, I've worked with Hanif Cement since 2016, for example. We've worked with Osler represents Autobotics, and Neo and Athenian and Reach and Vendasta and Saskatchewan and Seven Shifts and Ango and Coconut. And so we've kind of for a long time had this presence in the prairies. And my colleagues here in Calgary, I mean, we've had an office here since '96, have done a lot of work to continue to support those companies in this ecosystem. But we've kind of got to this point where, as a firm, we thought about what's next for Osler in this geography, and how do we continue to double down on our support. And I think where we really landed was, we needed to build out and continue to support the aspect of our firm that is dedicated 100% to supporting companies in this space, and primarily with a view to supporting the earlier stage companies in this geography. And you kind of need to, and you would appreciate this, like, you kind of need to be here to do that. You need to kind of be boots on the ground. You need to be able to see people face to face, go to events, build those connections. And so in 2021, my partners and I made a decision that, we would start to make a greater push in this geography. And, in talking to people like Hanif and others at the time, I very enthusiastically raised my hand to be the person to come out here and to lead that effort. And so the thing that really motivated me at the end of the day was Alberta and the prairies more broadly is in this state of just an awesome building experiment. And with like so much success, the pace of growth is incredible. And what I saw was this opportunity to come in and be, an ambassador for the ecosystem, to be a community supporter, and kind of like, frankly, a lawyer last. I've always kind of run away from this idea of like, the sleazy service provider stereotype. And so, I'm always looking to think about, what can I do with the skill set that I have that is kind of bigger than just my immediate, periphery of what matters to me as like, income, et cetera. And how can I kind of leave legacy, and what can I do to actually make communities around me better? And so the opportunity to come here and take all of the knowledge that I've gained in the Toronto ecosystem, working with, Toronto VCs and companies at all stages, including very late stages, working with a lot of the kind of Bay Area and New York investors, kind of the opportunity to bring that to this geography and to just be one other voice providing kind of that expert guidance was something that really appealed to me, because it's more than at that point about, money and career. It's about legacy and the things we leave behind and the mark we make for people around us. So that kind of more humanistic approach, I'll call it, to practicing law and pursuing my own profession was something that really appealed to me. And just as I kind of work in this space with that kind of mindset, it feels like just a great fit for me in terms of, what I want out of my career. So the skiing and the cycling here doesn't hurt as well. Access to mountains is awesome. So, but yeah, that was the driver for coming.
No, I love it. And honestly, I did not know you were born in St. Albert. So that is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just sitting there going, oh my God.
Yeah.
I figured I should know that, but I don't. So that's kind of ironic that brought up. But I do love one of the things that you did say there, talking about what it's like to do business here. We call it the Prairie Way, talking to a new fund that's potentially moving here from Denver, and all the people that you talk, and they see what goes on here. They love what's going on here. And as I 100% agree with you, people in Alberta here, Saskatchewan, Manitoba as well, people do business with people, and they like that. And for you to come in here and be part of that community, I mean, I'm sure you felt welcome. I'm sure you do feel welcome, not only for what you've done, but probably that feeling has been maybe a lot different. We'll dive into some of the differences later, but has that been, something that you've really enjoyed?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, that is probably one of the most unexpected but best elements of the move here is just the people. I think, as you can imagine, being new to the ecosystem at one point, I guess, last year in January, when my wife and first daughter at the time moved here, I didn't really know anyone. And it started with, people like Doug Schweitzer and, Mark Joyner at KPMG and Christina Williams and Mark Blackwell, meeting those types of people, in some cases, kind of reaching out cold to them as well. And them having no apprehension about meeting, having no idea who I was, what I was about, but still finding the time in their day to just grab a coffee. And I think that is what really makes Alberta and the prairies more broadly truly unique, is this openness to just have a conversation and collaborate. There doesn't have to be an expectation of, some kind of gain or something coming out of every meeting, but I have never once had someone just totally ghost me on a, request for a coffee or, say that they don't want to meet. Everyone is happy to, to have a dialogue. And I really think that that's part of this province's and the geography's superpower, because that willingness to collaborate and connect and be kind of bigger than just the individual is something that I think really supercharges this ecosystem. So yeah, huge factor for me. And it's, something that I'm continually inspired by, is just the openness and willingness to collaborate here.
Well, I mean, I agree. It is our superpower, if that's what we want to call it. I mean, we're so good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, again, we can use Doug as an example, right? He reached out to you, he reached out to me. I'm doing this. I'm like this. I'm excited. It's like, you know what? There's lots of business for everybody. And you know what? Chances are, there might be shared business at, down the road somewhere saying, hey, you know what? Maybe you're a better fit for this.
Yeah.
Or I know somebody that can help you. And again, that exactly what makes, which makes us so strong out here. And anybody that's coming to move here to set up, like CED introduced me to somebody to talk about, moving, why should they move to Calgary rather than Toronto? And I mean, I hope after that call, they were pretty pumped.
Yep.
So I think I do a pretty good job selling our ecosystem. And a lot of the conversation is based around that. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about maybe what's different. You said you've worked with bigger companies in a more mature market, in Toronto. So what was, the difference from Toronto to maybe coming here and working with earlier stage companies? What are you willing to share with us?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the the difference from an ecosystem perspective is certainly that there's just more of everything in the GTA, in terms of investors, in terms of companies, in terms of organizations that support the tech space. And I think that's something that Calgary, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, these provinces, their ecosystems are all continually changing, and we're growing the footprint of these ecosystems across the prairies. But that's something that we'll need to continue to support and push on. I mean, when people ask, like, in terms of what we need, I do have some specific thoughts on what we need, but generally speaking, I mean, we need 1,000 times more of everything. We need 1,000 times more pre-seed investors, seed investors, Series A investors, organizations that support tech, founders, etc. Like, we just need everything about this ecosystem is volume driven. And that top of funnel, as it relates to investors, to companies, to everything, needs to be very robust to kind of drive those outsized outcomes at the other end of this, in terms of exits, et cetera. And so I think that that's kind of the difference at this point in terms of Toronto relative to the prairies, where we are still an ecosystem in growth mode, and we're starting to see great companies that are at the growth stages. I mean, you look at like Zayzoon and Cement and Neo, all of those, for example. But we've got this really large contingent of what I would say are kind of like pre-seed, seed, Series A stage companies. And so, the kind of the growth story is still in its earlier days here in the prairies relative to what I was used to seeing in Toronto. But that to me is really exciting, because again, that's the whole building experiment that we're right in the thick of at the moment. And I think when I take the kind of long-term perspective I have as a result of working with really late stage companies, it makes me pretty dangerous when I start to get to advise early stage companies in terms of what to expect, because I mean, I've seen it all, have dealt with kind of all of the issues that they'll deal with at various stages of growth and financing, with investors from the kind of $5,000 first check to the multi-$100 million pension plan investment in the later stages. And so that's my opportunity to be able to really add value in terms of thinking about that long-term perspective. But what I would say, just kind of getting back to the differences, there's also a really cool similarity, which is like the strength of founders here. The talent in terms of founders and their ability to build companies is world class. And that is something that we're even noticing a difference from our perspective as a practice last year to this year. It's notable. And so I would say that that's probably one of the things that I'm most excited about is, we're closing the gap on, just the ability of people to build companies in this geography. We're also starting to see a lot of diversity in industry here in the prairies. So again, I think a lot of people coming from Toronto would think about, the Alberta tech more as energy transition. And while that's certainly part of what this ecosystem is, it's so much more than that as well. And like I think that's all an indication of the maturation of this ecosystem. We've got energy transition, we've got ag tech, we've got digital health, we've got life sciences and biotech, we've got awesome AI talent coming out of Edmonton, for example. We've got everything. We've got clean tech as well. So I think increasingly what I'm seeing is that the gap in terms of any differences between Toronto and Calgary is closing. The notable one, or I would say Toronto and the prairies more generally, not just Calgary, but the notable one is really just the age and stage of companies. I think only because we're a bit earlier on in that growth story.
Yeah, I think that's you bring up some very, very valuable points there. And I mean, Toronto was early at one point too. They just had a bigger head start.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's great to have people like you with that experience that have seen that kind of, go from, maybe when you started, they were walking and, we're crawling still. But
Yeah.
again, to have that knowledge like yourself to come here and share is only going to enhance our founders, our ecosystem helpers, whether that be platform or any of the venture funds that are coming in here, to have those conversations with them saying, hey, you know what? This company was very much like you. This fund was like you.
Yeah.
This is how they grew. And maybe that knowledge they just can't get right now.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, and it's, I think that's the thing that kind of differentiates us at the end of the day. I mean, we do a ton of financing work every year. We have a huge portfolio of companies that we work with. And that's the fun part about it, is being able to be, just a layer above the kind of basic legal advice to really straddle the legal / business advice side of things, because of the volume and scale that we've seen as a practice. That's the really fun part, is to be able to work with like a pre-seed company and give them advice that is predicated on what we expect them to encounter and have to deal with through their seed round, their Series A round, their B, their C, their D, and that's a really fun role to play, because again, it's getting out of just, I'm a lawyer, you need a document, here's your document, I'll talk to you next time you need something. You kind of become this conciliary type role, which is the thing that I really enjoy the most about my job.
Well, that's good. And again, I'm talking with, Michael Grantmyre from Osler. If you have any more information, go to the website. It's in the comments section. I want to talk. We don't really, none of us, that's kind of the prairie thing or Canadian thing, like boasting about, some of the good things that we've done, but now it's time to boast a little bit. So I've seen you obviously, come in here. I've watched what you do. And I think there's and maybe you'll touch on this, but I think there's an importance of probably having some of those same people, especially in the legal world, there for maybe your angel, your pre-seed, your seed, whatever you want to call them, your A, B, C, D, down the road. So they really get to understand you as a person, understand you as a business.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about, once you've come in here and what you've created to really help some of those, because we all know there's, capital is always a big problem when it comes to early stage startups, and it's spending money on, whether it be lawyers or consultants or marketing, is kind of not really recommended. So why don't you talk about what you've done and created and how you see that moving forward?
Yeah. So I think the key thing that we offer is an ability to work with early stage companies in a way where they're, notwithstanding the limited resources they have, able to still access the services that Osler provides and the kind of wealth of expertise that we provide. And, I can't unfortunately take credit for creating this, because, Osler, this kind of innovation and support for the space is kind of in our DNA as a firm. We started really offering our emerging and high growth companies group package in, I think it was 2010, probably. And essentially what it is a flat fee package that gives companies everything they need to get set up and organized in a way where at any moment when you turn on access to a data room for a Canadian or US or other kind of tier one VC, they immediately understand and know and recognize what your structure is. And so that's kind of, getting your share structure set up properly, getting, shareholder agreements in place that are consistent with what venture-backed companies would have, dealing with IP assignment issues, founder vesting, equity incentive plans, and then just really a runway of kind of free ad hoc legal advice, for 6 months. And so the whole idea is to kind of give some budgetary certainty to companies in the early days where cash is finite, and to really create a bit of a safe space for early stage founders to engage with a law firm like Osler, where they don't have to be worried about getting the surprise invoice or being told that, hey, we're happy to help, but we need a retainer for this, or happy to help, but it's going to be some like ridiculous amount of money to do this for you. So, what the model at the end of the day, and a good example is, as a firm, we incorporated Wealthsimple, and we still act for them. And that is really what we are seeking to achieve with what we do. So, we're not only interested in working with you if you're, a massive company. We actually love being able to plug in. I mean, I have conversations with founders for 6+ months before they've even incorporated a business, just talking about strategy and various considerations about the business, everything from, legal to capital raising and beyond, without any expectation of like a formal client relationship, without, telling them I need to send them a bill for the time we spent together. And that's just, you gotta lead with value. Before you kind of put your hand out asking for stuff, and you can't be short-term and transactional about stuff. And so, kind of going back to Osler as a firm, that's really kind of the model that we built. And I'd like to say we're the first firm in this country to really think about offering something like that to early stage companies, and viewing them as like a different segment of client where we recognize, these companies actually can't afford just like the a la carte, billable by the hour type of service. And we need to be innovative and think about how we still make sure that these companies, who will one day become incredible world-beating businesses, make sure that we give them the ability, to access, the services from a firm like Osler in a way that doesn't just break the bank. And so that's kind of really the ethos of what we've been after. And it's really built on this idea of, from an economics perspective as a practice, this, long-term, relationship perspective on approach, as opposed to, okay, what have we made from this particular client, last month? And do we still want to do their work given that? It's not about that from our perspective. We hope that we get to do lots of financings with our clients, that at some point we get to do M&A work with our clients, maybe capital markets work if they kind of go that direction. And that when they, eventually sell their business for $1 billion, they want to work with us again for the next one, because no entrepreneur just does this once and is done. So that's kind of the philosophy that all this is built on.
I love it. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of it. I've actually put the link for the high growth, emerging high growth package in the comment section. So you can just click on it, go directly there, find out more information. But I think that's probably, our philosophy is very familiar. And I think that's why we're going to probably, be working together and doing some office hours. I know Mo, Pete, Kyle, and the entire Peer Guidance team are excited about that, because, giving back and when a client can't pay, that doesn't mean that you just stop working with them. There's one person I've been working with now for almost 3 years for free, because I believe in them. They can't afford anything, but I like what they're doing. I like them as a person. I got to know them, and you want to be there to help them.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, I think we're we're kindred spirits in that respect, Jade, for sure. I mean, you kind of, just like investors who invest in these companies with their cash, for our time, we think about investing in the person. And it's not always about the business and what it's doing. You invest in people, and I think that's the best way to do right by our clients. And I mean, just to your point, I mean, excited about our office hours too. I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm sure clients coming in will be able to get a lot of benefit from the feedback that you give them in those office hours. So it'll be pretty sweet.
Yeah, we're pumped. I know our first one will be January 17th.
Yeah.
We'll probably be releasing some information on there, in the beginning of January. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's something, and it's not just you and I. I mean, there's so many people in our ecosystem that give back, that will have those coffees, that will make sure that, you know what, I can't help you, but I know somebody that can.
Yeah. No, I love it. It's like I said before, just like a really humanistic way to practice on my end is kind of what I love about it. Same thing in terms of what you guys are doing at Peer Guidance, and I think that generally that's the culture of this ecosystem, which is something I'm always just amazed by.
Just every day, it puts a smile on my face every single day. It makes me want to stay involved rather than go back to go to another startup and try and do the whole thing all over again.
Well, see, I mean, in your position, you're lucky because you get to help a bunch of startups. So you're, kind of right there in the thick of it with everyone. So you're kind of, indirectly a founder of all these companies in many ways.
That's what makes it fun, right? You got your hands in a lot of little pots over here, rather than just saying, live, eat, breathe one.
Yeah. I love it.
But that being said, the live, eat, breathing one is fun sometimes. Not all the time. There's a lot of stress that comes with it. But again, it's something I thoroughly enjoy. So let's talk about what's next. So what's your short-term goals here for yourself and Osler, and maybe long-term?
Yeah. So I think, as you know, I lead the practice, the Emerging and High Growth Companies Group practice in the Prairies. So that's Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And so in terms of what's next for us, the goal is really just to continue to build the team out, to kind of be able to support more and more, and to really kind of be thoughtful about how we can be accretive to the ecosystem and the community here. Again, so I mean, on the team front, as you know, we've got Jake Young on the team. We've got Emmy on the team as well as one of the associates. We've got Patrick on our team as one of the associates. Jesse Russell as well is on the team, and then and so we're going to continue to build that team here in the Prairies, and continue to find ways just to support the different communities that we operate in, and thinking about things holistically. Our support is not necessarily just doing the work. That's obviously one critical element of it, but it's also, thought leadership. So for example, our work on the Deal Points report, educating ecosystems across this country on, market terms and trends for venture financings. I'm admittedly a data geek, which I know is a weird thing to say as a lawyer, but my practice is really informed by numbers, and I think that's perhaps a bit of a unique way to approach the practice of law. But I think about every element of a negotiation as just like another bell curve, and try to work on and think about, how do we determine what's market? How do we get to that answer? And like, more importantly, how do we test that with data as opposed to just anecdotally or subjectively, which has its role obviously in giving advice, but I'm informed primarily by numbers. So we'll continue to do that from an education perspective, and we'll continue to advocate for things that we think are missing or are necessary in the tech space. Talking to Brian at Metiquity, for example, the other day, I mean, he's really passionate about continuing to support early stage pre-seed institutional venture funds. And I think that that's a really important thing for us to also focus on, because, people like him who have got that experience investing from an institutional perspective, that's important. And we need more of that at all stages. But certainly in the pre-seed stages, it's really important too. So I know like he's doing great work there. Tallgrass is doing a lot of great work on the pre-seed side of things. Chris Edwards and Wilson Acton are great friends. Chris is a fellow cycling buddy, and yeah, so we need more of that, and it goes back to my point of we need 1,000 times more of everything, and so the thing that I'm really passionate about is like to me, law is not like the end of what I'm working to achieve in this ecosystem. Law is really just my tool to try to build here. And so, the objective here is building. And so that means, in terms of what's next, again, it's like, how does Osler provide input and support for just building a robust ecosystem? And part of how we do that is growing the team. And then, like I said, we also will be doing a lot of thought leadership and advocacy on that front as well.
I love it. And I mean, I get that, right? I'll tell, Chris might chirp me at lunch today as we're eating, deep fried KD, but, Antiquity's probably my favorite fun, Brian and Jacques. I love what they do. I love their thoroughness. I love their passion.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we can talk about this all day, all the great people. And I do agree, right? I mean, we need more, we need bigger. We're getting there, but I love that we're growing as a community, right? It's not like, like I was a new investor 8 or 9 years ago. Like, yes, I've been part of a few exits, but you know what? I didn't know how to help. And then I've grown myself and I've seen Platform grow and the CIC come along and a lot of really good things that just everybody's just, growing together and understanding how this puzzle is going to work. Yep.
Totally agreed. Yeah. It's certainly an exciting future for both Alberta, but also, the rest of the prairies. So it's pretty cool to see. I mean, as of Q3, we're at like 84 investments across the prairies. We're, in Alberta set to beat the record set in 2022, which was a new record over 2021. And like the locomotive is just kind of on a roll here. So it's exciting to think about that. But more importantly, the key now is like making sure we double down on our efforts, continue to build a robust foundation for this growth, and do right by the founders and investors in this community.
Yeah, I just started looking at the NACO report, which is I don't know, it's probably 500 pages long. So maybe as a lawyer, you get that more excited about that than I do. But
yeah.
But I was looking at it saying, we're up on investments. We're up on companies that invested in, funds that have invested in Alberta. Our numbers are down a little bit from 21 to 22.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still the second highest on record. So it's all going the right direction. We're going there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people just want us to get there faster, and there's no magic pill for weight loss or growing faster. So
it's just time and effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm always sad when our conversation comes to an end, but I mean, this is one question I love asking, and I guess I've asked one lawyer on this before, so I'm going to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe put a little legal spin on it for us. But if you had one piece of advice for a startup or entrepreneur, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say don't go it alone. Focus aggressively on building community around you as a founder. And that is, community in terms of your peers who are other founders, community in terms of investors, community in terms of mentors, and community in terms of service providers. And maybe to put the legal spin on it is, it doesn't have to be me, but find a lawyer that, you can trust and that, can kind of bridge the gap between not just being the service provider, but being the kind of the friend, the therapist, the business advisor, who's kind of invested in serving all those roles and who isn't thinking about you as kind of a number and a profit center. Focus on those types of real relationships, and that'll get you far.
That's great advice, and I love that. And I know, and I've seen you in action doing that, and I love that. The high growth emerging package that you have. I think that's just important, so important for what we do, and especially at that early stage when the founders are vulnerable, right? That's why we created the Thriving Minds course with Collectively Tangled. It's not something that you need to do alone, and it is hard, right? When you have somebody just to lean on or go talk to or have a coffee with, even if you can't talk to your family about it, there's people like myself out there or whoever will sit down and saying, hey, you know what, let's talk this out. Let's make sure that that you're healthy, because I say this all the time. Companies are only as healthy as their founder, and we have to make sure that our founders are healthy, our ecosystem is healthy, if we're going to ever grow properly.
I couldn't agree more, Jade. I think it's a great point.
No, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you were able to come on here, spend a half an hour, share your knowledge, share your time. I'm excited about, moving forward with our office hours. I'm excited about, the high growth program that, you're making people aware of, and all the support you give this ecosystem. So thank you very much, Michael. Keep on being awesome. And I hope you and your family have an amazing holidays.
Thanks, Jade. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And for everybody else, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. And we will be picking up in January, talking about the University of Calgary and all the great programs they offer to help entrepreneurs. So again, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, everybody. Michael, have a great day, my friend, and we will chat soon.